Hi, Holly. How are you?
I'm good. How's it going, Brandon?
Pretty good. I had a big week of development. It's been a little bit exhausting. So I've been working with a coach, as you know, Coach Bird. We had three different workshops this week. Yeah, one was on communication, which was very valuable. One was on how to build a perfect team, which is kind of exciting to think about at a
Yeah.
scale. And the other one's also kind of more about connection skills, like how to get in the right rooms, things like that. So yeah, it's very insightful, pretty fun. How's your week?
Yeah, I would say it was a big week for development for me, but maybe for different reasons.
Hmm.
Yeah, so lots of stuff going on at work, during my day job, but then also just kind of working through you and I talked about it earlier this week, just me moving through some maybe what's starting to feel like the next phase of growth and discomfort.
Yeah, that's perfect. So today's topic is the cost of avoiding discomfort. So, discomfort's one of those main themes that you always see in the personal development space. It's the common phrase is get out of your comfort zone, or another one is get comfortable being uncomfortable. There's good reason for those things. And so we're going to go a little bit into that just to frame it up a little bit here. So this podcast is called Permission to Evolve. Our frame is to figure out where you're hung up in your past so that you can evolve or take some new action. So this is a kind of a perfect setup for that because we have to challenge things that are kind of our norm or our default. We have to question the things that we do on a regular basis, which is comfortable for us. So what we're doing is we're getting a little bit curious and we're trying to explore that, being like, okay, why do I believe these things? Why do I have these behaviors in certain situations? What beliefs are attached to those? So we're gonna go into the mechanics of these things, how this all came to be, and then give a little bit of a path forward, some tips. Anything you want to shine a light on before we start here?
No, I just think it's really a very timely topic, so I'm excited to dive into it and talk about those ideas around getting comfortable with discomfort and what that really means because I think it's, we throw out, to your point, those kind of sayings and
Hmm.
maybe don't necessarily fully ground them. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and that's the thing. So many of these things are commonly said, and it's just kind of after a while it loses its power, right? Because it's probably impactful like 20 years ago, or maybe like in the 70s or something like that. I don't know, but
right.
but
Yeah.
it's a yeah. So there is a reason for this. We always just want to associate this idea of discomfort as an opportunity for growth, and it's whatever dose we want to have of that, right? So if I want to be on this accelerated path, I'm probably going to have to be uncomfortable, and uncomfortable is in essence uncertainty, right? I need to be taking new actions. I need to be taking steps that I haven't been taking before, right? The reason it's uncomfortable is our mindset is it's based on our past. So we've had certain things happen to us along the way. And if something's been painful for us or it's unresolved or we've had some struggles, generally we leave that in a negative emotional place. And we tell ourselves a narrative or a story about those things that happened to us. If we continue to tell a story over and over again, we start to build that into a belief. And a belief is really it's a rule for life. It's we believe these things to be absolutely true and we're motivated to continue to make them true, right? So they become these self-fulfilling prophecies. Like I can't see it any other way. This is my reality, right? If we want to make changes, we have to take a look at those things, because that's actually the mechanics. That's what causes the discomfort. Is I have a belief here and it's supported with a bunch of evidence from my past. I believe it's true and there's no other reality. And so when I hit discomfort, that's challenging my belief or my reality. Okay.
Right.
So this is an established narrative and we're pushing on the boundaries of that. And that's going to create an uncomfortable feeling within our nervous system. So we're basically going to be poking at these limitations or the stored data, and that's really the essence of this work is we question that stuff and we ask is like, is this still functional for me today? Does this support me in what I want to accomplish? Is this sabotaging me? That's a pretty good question. Am I actually destroying the things that I want subconsciously? So
Yeah.
discomfort's gonna happen anytime I'm challenging something I believe. It's gonna challenge or it's gonna happen anytime I take a step that I don't have data behind it where I understand what the outcome's going to be, right? So we could call those risks. So I'm going to take a
Yeah.
risk. I'm going to put myself out there in a new way. And for me recently, I hadn't hired a coach in a while, and I started doing that again, and so now but so that's like it's me stepping into that, and part of the risk is investing money, right? Putting money
Right.
into something, and it's just like if you're not used to doing that, that feels a little bit uncomfortable, right?
Right.
And these ideas, well, if I want to grow, that is part of the process. I'm going to start spending money on these things. I'm going to start putting more focus and attention and energy into them to build this new path, right? And the thing is, it's not always, there's different modes to life. There's different phases. Like, sometimes I might be more in a reflective stage, right? I might be in
Right.
this place where, yeah, I'm not really pushing the envelope anywhere, but I might be unpacking things that have happened so I can learn about those. That's a different form of discomfort where maybe I'm going internally and questioning things without taking a lot of action. So it's
Yeah.
not always, it doesn't have to be action based. It could be, kind of, I'm going to look at things that maybe are uncomfortable or, and that I could just sit in my room and do that. I
Sure.
can just journal. That's things we want to see that there's a million ways to do this, right? There's no right or wrong way with any of it. It's this curiosity to explore and find out more about yourself. So when we
Right.
do these things, whether I'm taking an outward action, like taking a big leap of faith or a step, I'm gonna be confronted with what I believe about that situation. So that's gonna be uncomfortable, right? Or it
Yeah.
could be, okay, I'm wanting to do this, and so I imagine it, and when I'm imagining it, part of me feels excited, but part of me is just can't really wrap my mind around that, right? Because it hasn't
Right.
happened yet. So in that place, I'm also with my focus, I'm calling attention to the things that I need to overcome in order to achieve the thing I'm imagining. So that
Right.
the mind's very powerful in conceptualizing things. And also, yeah, I could get around people that are doing bigger things, and I'm gonna feel like an imposter, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
if I'm
Yep.
not operating at that level, that's gonna challenge me in a new way. So learning a new skill, like going to a dance class or learning a foreign language or,
Sure.
anything like that, I could be stumbling through that process, right? It's gonna be uncomfortable. I don't have the data in my system to support me having success at that, right? So
Right.
I have to learn the foundations. I have to dig in deeper to try and understand how to develop this skill. All these things create discomfort. So it's an expansion, it's a growth process, and any expansion we have, there's also going to be a contraction that comes with it. That's the nature of everything. Is every time I grow, I'm going to be faced with things that constrict me, that I'm basically going to be shown my limitations with regard to that situation.
Right.
We hear the phrase like one step forward, two steps back, or something like
Yeah.
that, and so that's speaking to this thing of, okay, I had a breakthrough, and then that breakthrough brought me to a new level, and so now I'm confronted with my next like round of limitations I'm functioning from. So that's going to make me uncomfortable again, or because I can't hold on to these limiting beliefs and get to where I want to go, and so I have to sort those out. That, in essence, is what the emotional response. It's
Yeah.
this internal conflict that gets brought up where I'm trying to reconcile my new reality.
Can you say a little bit more the feeling of 2 steps back, and I just wanna make sure I'm clear on how you're describing this, right? So there's the feeling of 2 steps back. It's not actually a
Mhm,
regression
mhm.
necessarily in your progress from what you're saying. It just is the next round of garbage that you're gonna have to sort through.
Yeah, it's, these things are all layers and levels. Our mind is a record of the past, and so think of how much life you've lived, and we have this continuity because we form belief systems, and that continues to reinforce itself. So that's what's comfortable to me is what's familiar. So anytime I'm bumping up against these boundaries, and there's quite literally is within our nervous system. So if I
Yeah.
formed a belief that actually like crystallizes in my nervous system, through the way my neurons fire, it's got a pattern linked to it. So I'm like motivated to act in the same way over and over again. Okay.
Right.
And that may be good to build a routine and to kind of get some momentum going. But over time, that can be extremely limiting, right? Because I'm so practiced that I'm actually operating on autopilot. I'm not making conscious decisions. I'm just kind of reacting to things. In that place, I'm going to get some of what I want and some of what I don't, right? There's no real science to it. I'm just going through the motions. So if we're going to be more intentional about things, that is like, oh, yeah, I noticed that I have these patterns that I keep doing over and over again. And then we question, is that supporting what I want? Is that in conflict with what I want?
Yeah.
And we start to go a little bit deeper and being like, well, okay, yeah, I noticed that when I take this action, and let's say like a negative emotion like guilt or shame or something like that comes up, this would be where addictions lie and things like that, where it's like I experience a negative emotion and then that negative emotion immediately makes me go do something that sabotages, right?
Right.
So, okay, that takes me off track, right? And that reinforces more negative behavior. And it reinforces this idea that I don't actually go after the things I want. I don't put the time, energy, and focus into my desires, and so lose self trust with myself. Where I
Yeah.
don't believe that I'm actually going to take those actions. This idea of one step forward, two steps back is like, okay, yeah, I took a new action and that new action brought in new data, and that data causes a contraction within me where we can have the inner critic get woken up. We can have these
Yeah.
things come up of hey, this is what you believe though. Okay, so
Right.
and that's going to be, these are limiting beliefs, so these are things that shut us down. Okay,
Right.
and those are going to be built on a negative worldview, negative emotion, avoidance of pain. Okay. So if I'm going to feel that, but I have this new data now, so I have to reconcile that. I'm actually making progress, but it actually might feel like I didn't.
Right.
The trick is we want to recognize that and we want to move through it, right? We want to continue on our path. We don't want to use this kind of the emotional backlash of that to be like, oh, yeah, I'm on the wrong path. Because that's actually a necessary part of the equation is to be confronted with your internal conflicts about what you want, because you have to align that stuff, because we're aligning the pieces so that things work together, and that's what gives you access to increasingly higher levels. Okay, it is giving up negative beliefs about yourself and self-worth, and it's like, how can I build confidence? That's going to be me taking new action. The action is going to give me some new data to pull from, and then I have to integrate that into my system of how can I do this better next time. And I have to continually do that over and over again, sometimes thousands of times to
Yeah.
really kind of build these muscles, right? So it's this ability to stick with it. And it's also this ability to really know that, hey, the growth process isn't comfortable because I'm going to be challenging myself every step of the way. But that is, really the only way to grow is we have to bump up against these limitations that we've placed on ourselves from our
Yeah.
past.
I was gonna say, so if sometimes limiting beliefs can be attached to things. You and I have talked about this before, but attached to things that people could perceive as values, right? So like the belief becomes like so ingrained, or it starts to, maybe it's even like starting to get woven into an identity, right? Of the type of person. And so I'm wondering if you can say some on that too, right? As you're moving through this discomfort, some of it could be because you've got to rethink a value or an identity.
Well, yeah, on the deeper levels of this work, it is all identity work because it's like becoming a new person, right? Like, and I'm not a big labels person because I view them as kind of traps. If
Sure.
I build my identity around something, then that once again continually reinforces itself. And there's some cases where that might be a beneficial thing, but it makes it very difficult to change your mind. It makes it very
Yeah.
difficult to shift out of because I've kind of built this self-reinforcing system that uh, I really can't see reality any other way because I only see it through this identity. I think so many things in life are phases. If we're continuing to move with life, where and that could be like career shifts, that could be going from an athlete to a business person, or let's say, so when we yeah, you commonly see this with athletes is, oh, I'm just the Olympian, or whatever it is. Like, this is my entire identity is me being an athlete. And for very good reason, right? It's put a lot of time, energy, and effort into that over many, many years,
Yeah.
right? You don't really know who you are without that. But that leads, when that ends, it almost always is a depression.
Yeah.
I've been through that with baseball but and that's the thing is like baseball feels like another life to me now. But I
Right.
had to rework my identity to see myself differently and understand I have value in other ways, right?
Right.
And so these things, we want to build a well-rounded life where it includes different aspects of ourselves and it's not and we want to have that freedom to express ourselves as we need to moment. We don't want to because a limitation is going to be this all or none thinking, right? And so
Right.
the beauty of this work is this nuance where I'm understanding myself at a deeper level, but then I'm also understanding that there's no one label that could contain that. Okay.
Yeah.
So the deeper I go, the more expanded I actually get, where there's no label that would feel like correct at this point. I go
Sure.
through this with coaching. Like I don't really care what people call me, right?
Right.
I just want to help people. So it's like,
Yeah.
whatever you need to hear to make sense in your mind, and that is an individual thing. With coaching, some people have like a negative connotation to coaches, right? If they've
Right.
had a bad coach, when we first met, there's some skepticism, right? Of like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I've had coaches before. I'm not sure if this is going to work and that kind of thing.
Right.
So when I say coach to you, it's a bit of a mixed bag, right?
Right.
So that's kind of that thing with labels can be really limiting, and so if we're going to be expanded and if we're going to give ourselves the freedom to follow our heart and pursue the things we want to, we may be operating on a lot of old ideas, and it is going to be uncomfortable to redesign that because
Right.
it's like, oh, I believe this was true about me, but now I don't know if I believe that anymore. So it leads to a bit of an identity crisis, and so in that place, we do have to go very inward, because it's just like, well, I feel like I'm not being authentic. I feel like I'm kind of living a lie because I'm operating on these old ideas that don't
Right.
really suit me anymore, and they don't feel right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I say when many things are a phase where it's not always this continuity, but it's yeah, that phase, like if we allow ourselves to move through it, that phase is going to lead to the next one. And so it should be this ongoing expansion
Right.
where, we just open up all these different dynamics to ourselves, rather than just being, oh, I'm just X, right? I'm just this
Right.
one little thing. And so that's part of it is this reworking how you see yourself. And so when we're talking about being uncomfortable, I have to, if I want something bigger and better than I'm doing right now, I have to grow into that, right? I have to
Right.
become somebody different. I have to
Right.
form different behaviors and beliefs and all those things that are going to get me there. So in that process, I have to take new steps. The old data doesn't work anymore. So whatever I've been doing, it got me to this point. Whatever I want to do, that's going to continue to give me the same results. So that's
Yeah.
why I do need to go put myself in new situations, and those new situations generally are uncomfortable. That's what's going to allow my mind to expand to see things differently, and then I start reconciling, yeah, like these old things I believed about myself don't really work anymore. And
Right.
for you it's like a little bit of coming out of your shell, right? Like being
Yeah.
quiet, things like that. It's this ability to speak up. So if you form an identity around that of just like, I'm a shy person, like
Yeah.
if you just say that, that doesn't have much wiggle room to it. It's very fixed, right? Oh,
Right.
I don't like speak and I don't like these situations. And well, we see the introvert title added a lot
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yep.
and
Yeah, that's
and it's
definitely
like,
a thing.
yeah, and it's like, well, but are there situations where you're extroverted? Is it context based or is it all the time, right? And so
Right.
that's why we want to be careful with labels, is because like, yeah, there's times I'm very very introverted, like don't want to talk, but then I do like to be out and about as well, right? They're different
Yeah.
modes we all have, and so we want to give ourselves freedom to explore those things without being too bound to a label that's going to be like, oh, I have to be this way all the time, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
because if there's a part of me that's like not wanting to be that way, right? I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna feel that. I'm gonna that's going to be low self-worth and shame and things like that. That's shutting down my expression, and the labels start to justify that.
Yes.
uh
I was just thinking about that from the and we talked about this, it's been quite some time ago, but I really attached to this value associated with security.
Mhm.
and identified that as like a core value for me, which makes sense based on how I grew up. But ultimately, that became the excuse that kept me from doing certain things because of the risk associated or the potential loss of security if I did something that felt risky.
Mhm. And that's the thing. So, and there's no judgment on any of it, right? It's obviously coming from one situation, you're gonna go to the other way, right? You're gonna be like,
Yeah,
yeah, I just want safety and security. But that's where you go back to the phase of it being, well, does that need to last the rest of your life? Or
right.
or yeah, or it can be context based, being okay, it's really important for me to have security with regards to this. But
Yeah,
in this area, I might be more open to risk or uncertainties or things like that, right? And in that security phase, that may be very important for you to like rebuild yourself, right? To be, yeah, I don't want a lot of extra unknowns popping in right now so that I can just get clear on who I am and kind of rework myself to feel more solid. Because when we're brought up in chaotic environments, yeah, everything puts you on edge, everything triggers you, like you become hypersensitive to so much. So,
right,
I think it's a necessary part in the journey is to adopt a little bit of a slower pace and to have a little bit more of that safety security where yeah I'm not trying to grow too much right now. I'm actually more in the healing mode, right?
sure,
um,
sure,
and so as you heal, that's where we can open up to be like, oh yeah, maybe I do want take some bigger steps now, right? But it's taking things to not making them a finality, right? Just being like, okay, I can make this decision now, but then I'm also free to make a different decision every step of the way.
right,
And so if I get highly invested in something and this is my identity and I don't see life any other way, okay, I'm just going to build very predictable patterns around that that can last the entirety of your life. It is a little bit of an illusion though, because there are always unexpected things that pop in. We can't, unless we're like living in a bubble,
right,
there's just going to be things that are out of our control that might come in and shake us up a little bit. I always kind of just see like, well, if we're in tune with ourselves, we might know that okay, I've gone through a big rough patch. I need to take a step back and just get really clear on myself right now. So I want things to be very calm and I just kind of want them to be stable right now.
yeah,
But if I get tired of that, and if I start the creativity starts waking back up, and I kind of feel like I'm in this phase right now,
yeah,
where I had this slow pace where I just rewired myself. Right, it wasn't anything crazy going on, but that was necessary for these next steps I'm taking to do things at a bigger level. So it's just like, okay, now it's like putting myself out there more, putting, it's more risk, but
right,
I trust myself more because I've done the healing work where it's not all these wounds that get activated anymore. It's just this is a necessary step that I should take because it's important for me to grow and to get to where I want to go. So
yeah,
so it's these things are all a muscle. It's like the more you work them, the easier they get over time. And it's never going to be just one phase all the time. You commonly hear the like seasons of life or things like
yeah,
that, where it's just
yep,
like there's so much truth to that, and a lot of these things you hear them so much that they do lose their power, but there is a lot of wisdom in them.
yeah,
Of this mode, I needed this, but you know, I kind of knew when that was over. And if I feel a
right,
bigger calling, now I owe it to myself to pursue that. And so that's where I get ramp things back up and start taking new actions again, putting myself in new situations, and in that process, I'm detaching from the old identity of the safety security, like this is my life now, right? Because
right,
it is an evolution. And so we just want to move with what's like, what's true for us at the time. Okay.
right,
And my recommendation is always you can definitely be in a mode, but like maybe don't build your entire identity and put a box around your life. Okay.
right,
Because
right,
there's probably going to be a time where you don't want that anymore.
yeah, yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, I remember when I was training horses, there was a time where I thought I would never want to do anything but that. And, here I am now in totally different life. Don't even own a horse anymore. Yeah.
Well, and that's the nature of life though, is like based on where you're at, you're going to come to certain conclusions and you're going to be like, yeah, this is right for me now. But
Yeah.
as you go through that, you can't help but have new ideas or new opportunities come your way, or like, it's like things that you don't expect. If there's excitement behind them, if you feel kind of pulled, those are clues to your nature, right? Oh, this is maybe a new chapter that's being born for me. And so if I don't pursue it, though, that's where we like shut down. And this is that idea of settling. Okay, is
Right.
like, I want to be comfortable more than I want to take the adventure. Okay.
Sure.
Like, I feel pulled in this direction. This is exciting to me, but the fear or the desire to be comfortable is too great that I suppress any sort of new action. And then when we do that, we're out of integrity with ourselves, and we don't really trust ourselves anymore. Okay. Well, we're
Yeah.
getting out of touch with ourselves. We're having to suppress our desires in order to maintain status quo. That creates a lot of bitterness and resentment. We lose respect for ourselves in that process. And that's where the ego gets stronger. So the ego is this basically stopping life. It's this protection mechanism of like,
Yeah.
I just want to be safe. And the ego's job is to tell these stories, and we're always the hero no matter what. Okay. So
Sure.
so I could be sitting on the couch doing nothing, but in my own mind, I'm like the hero somehow, right?
Right.
Uh,
I mean, main character
eh,
energy, right? Main character
yeah,
energy.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's that it's that, and we do it with justifications,
Yep.
excuses, blaming things on other people, like all that. And if we're in that mode, we know that that's anti-life. Okay, that's us not moving with the flow. That's us just staying the same, and it's us. We gave into fear or anxiety, and we grew that energy so much that now, okay, I'm not going to do anything, but I can't say that it was my fault or that I didn't take the steps. It's more, I need to find something to blame it on
Sure.
to make that, to justify my reality, right? And so that's
Yeah.
where we have bitterness, resentment over time. Those people do become miserable. And once again, no judgment on that, other than it is that, if you have these desires, there is a way to them. And if you don't want to, like, mental health wise, especially, like,
Yeah.
that all sinks you, right? If I need help to get to somewhere I've never been, right, there's no shame in
Yeah.
that. So it's
Right.
this ability to ask for help. It's this ability to be resourceful, to explore options, to try and make things happen on some level. And it doesn't have to be these massive like leaps. It could just be like, I need to just take one small step that's manageable, take it in bite-sized pieces, because at least we're being in integrity with ourselves then, right?
Right.
And there are things that can happen, like traumas, maybe major life events like a end of a relationship, or maybe a death in the family, or so, could something could
Yeah.
activate extreme negative emotions, and that can stop us too, right? So it's just like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, we're probably not going to be taking a lot of risky steps in the middle of emotional, but it's this ability to continue to work through these things, stick with them. That's
Right.
what benefits our mental health. That's what makes us feel purposeful, and gives us meaning and all that. So there just may be those phases where we take steps back and we don't do much, but if we stay there, that's generally leads to all negative outcomes over time.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe we'll go in a little bit about the inner critic here. So it's because that's a main component
Yeah.
of what holds people back, is the voice we all hear, right? And that's
Right.
the voice of our past, and that's basically the story that we tell ourselves, or the judgment of our past that we feel like is our identity.
So I'm just curious if you subscribe to the idea that the inner critic isn't actually your own voice. I did some inner critic work with a coach a while back, and one of the things we talked about is if you really think about your inner critic voice, it actually isn't. It isn't you. It is typically someone from your past
Hmm.
that voice comes from. Do you subscribe to that idea?
Yeah, I think it's probably predominantly our parents' voice, authority figures, things like that. I remember. So I only have one tattoo, and I got it in Thailand, right?
Yeah.
And and it was like a totally unexpected thing. I was going to Thailand, and with my cousin and my brothers and stuff, or my brother and my cousins, and we get there, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna do this cool thing called the Sakyat, which is it's like the ceremonial thing they do in Thailand."
Yeah.
And I'm really into Eastern philosophy and stuff, and I had never thought about it before, but I was like, "Oh, I'm going to." when he said it, I was like, "Oh, maybe I'll get a tattoo while I'm here." Like, and so
Yeah.
I had 10 days to decide, and I had never thought about this before in my life. And it had a feeling to it, and it was exciting to me. So I was just throughout that 10 days, I was preparing myself to be like, "Okay, maybe I'll get this tattoo."
Yeah.
And so it was funny because throughout that trip, as it was getting closer and closer, like, yeah, I kept hearing, like, my dad's voice, "Oh, those tattoos are stupid, blah, blah, blah." Like,
Right.
all the things about why I shouldn't get it. So I took that time to work out the voice in my head to be like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I want to do this like that. He's entitled to his opinion, right? But so that's the thing, is this the internal conflict, that's the inner critic. It's generally the judgments that we heard growing up, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so when it came down to it, I actually did it, and I'm glad I did. It was
Right.
something really cool that I'll always remember. But it started with that idea of considering it, and then I had to work through the discomfort, and as I was doing that, the voice of my dad kept popping up,
Yeah.
and I had to kind of make peace with that, and that's the thing is, it's if I would've just left it there, being, "Okay, I'm just gonna listen to that voice in my head," then, I probably wouldn't have taken the step. But
Right.
so it's just that ability to stick with things, work through the discomfort, question them, "Is this what I believe, or is that what he believes?" Right?
Right.
And
Right.
so I'm gonna be my happiest when I'm in alignment with what I believe, right? And that's
Yeah.
that we're all entitled to that. That's where a lot of this stuff comes from. This inner critic. It's this commentary, judgments about situations that gets activated all the time. I know you've mentioned that you've been able to create a little bit of space with yours now, right? Where it
Yeah.
doesn't feel so personal, where maybe it's there, but it's not as loud, and there's some space
Yeah.
there. So now you get to, it's more of, you can observe it and detach from it, right?
Right. Yeah, it's more when it comes up, the ability to recognize that a lot of things that are coming through in that voice are not, to your point before, right, are not actually true for me anymore. Like, wait, well,
Mhm,
wait a second, that's not true. This is the reality of the situation that you were in. Of course, hindsight's 2020, and you wish you could have said something better, more clearly, used a different example, whatever it might be, but that wasn't the reality of the moment you were in. So it, yeah, to
mhm.
your point, it's created this space where I can actually almost shut it down to be like, "Wait, well, that's ridiculous. That's not true."
Well, and that's the importance of giving ourselves some space too. We get caught up in, oh, okay, if I'm going to take action, I have to take all this action all the time. But I think it's more of a take some action. Things are going to come up for you. I think it's aligning and sorting those things out, and then taking more action, right?
Right.
It's a rhythm you adopt. And it's knowing that if I'm taking new steps that are uncertain, that critic is going to be loud. It's
Yeah.
going to be, because it's trying to keep me safe. It's trying to keep everything the same. So that's all it is. It's this commentary to, it's an internal conflict of, I want this, but I believe this, right? And so
Yeah.
we have to kind of wrestle with it a little bit. And it is just getting up to speed with who you're at now, and what your current reality is. A lot of these things are voices from a very young age that don't actually apply anymore, like you said. So it's getting in tune with that reality of, like, it only has power over me if I give it that power, right?
Right.
If I hear it and then I believe it is true, absolutely, and I don't question it, okay, well, then now I'm just going to keep doing the same thing I've always done. As
Right.
part of this ability to move forward, take new steps, when that discomfort gets activated, and it voices its opinion, it's going
Right.
to be this, okay, yeah, that was my past. This is what I want now. So I have to take these new steps. Okay. And
Yeah.
it's basically raising or lowering the activation energy to get over that hump, right? Where, because
Yeah.
it's like, in the beginning, it's louder and it's more difficult. And so we have to expect that. We have to expect that it's going to be the hardest in the beginning. And and so I just have to continue to work through it. I have to know that's part of the process. Working through discomfort is, every time I conquer it, though, every time I hit a new breakthrough, I'm adding more and more data that supports this idea that, yeah, discomfort does equal growth. That actually, every
Right.
time I feel this way, I get better, I get stronger, I get more skilled, I get
Yeah.
more resourceful. I'm actually expanding my world where I can take more and more risks because I know that I can figure it out, right?
Right.
That's what confidence ultimately is this ability to take steps without having that certainty at the end of it. If I really trust myself, if I really know that I can regulate and work through my emotions, that they're not going to shut me down. Now I start to establish this rhythm where I can take bigger and bigger steps because I know I can handle it.
Right. I think that's, so touching on the confidence thing, and I know you're working on some stuff specifically around confidence right now as well, and I want to talk about that. But before we go there, I'm thinking about that I the idea of the discomfort building the confidence, right? I read something earlier today. The only way that we get better at doing hard things is by doing hard things. Or, there's the stoic thing, right? Of, the obstacle is the way. So we have to like go through the thing to actually get where we want to go. So I think it would be cool if you could talk a little bit more about that idea of like the discomfort building the sort of long-term confidence.
Yeah, and it's this. I actually had a conversation with my girlfriend at Valentine's last night about this. The people I have a hard time respecting are people that I know that like won't ever do the hard thing, right?
Right.
Like anytime they're uncomfortable, they're looking to throw somebody under the bus. They're trying to find some very quick relief from the situation. So you can't trust the person like that in a tough situation, right? So that's like a challenge is like so the opposite of that is, oh, this ability to face and work through discomfort and to have accountability and to be able to make mistakes, but then also own your mistakes, right?
Right.
uh,
Yep.
it's all these things. It's basically like creating more and more truth with yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
Like we said, it's like, okay, the other version is something happens, I blame it on somebody else, and then I justify why I'm the hero when I actually did nothing at all, right? So that's the like, kind of the lowest form of it. If we're going to build confidence, this ability to face reality over and over again, even if it's very difficult. Okay,
Right.
it's because if it's in front of me, that's my work to do, and if I avoid that, it's going to continue to show up in increasingly more difficult ways over time, right? I can't avoid the big problems in my life without them coming back to haunt me, right? So it's just
Yeah.
this that willingness to kind of look at the mountain and just be like, okay, I'm going to climb it, but I only need to like focus on the step right in front of me. Because
Right.
if I look at the whole mountain, that's overwhelming and that's probably going to shut me down, and I'm like, yeah, that's like impossible. But if I just get to work on whatever's right here, and this is a big part of my work with clients, as you know, we literally just work on the problems right in front of you, right?
Right.
Yeah, so it's like
Yeah.
what happened this week? And whatever happened this week, we're gonna have some data from our past that's in conflict, and we're gonna try and reconcile that and make peace with it, right? And then
Yeah.
in that process, we're gonna learn some things. And so I'm not a big take repetitive action over and over again. I'm a take some action, use that data, unpack it, learn from it, and then make a better step. Okay.
Right.
It's like, I think that's the fastest way to progress. Initially, it might look slower than somebody who's just taking repetitive action, but they're going to be making a lot of the same mistakes because they're not doing the unpacking part. So the purpose is to gain wisdom from every action you take. And that means, okay, yeah, this is why I made a mistake here. This is why I didn't get the results I wanted. Right. And then in that place, I'm like, okay, what can I do to do this better? Like, or do I need to talk to somebody or do I need to watch a video? Is there some knowledge I need? Right.
Right.
I start to go a little bit deeper with whatever actions I've already taken. And so that accelerates my learning process because I'm not doing the same thing over and over again. I'm adjusting every single time. And that's how I refine. I get more dialed in my actions. And then that over time that's going to lead to amplified results. So I see that as okay, like whatever you've done, well, let's use that.
Yeah.
Wh- if somebody comes to me and they're like, I haven't really done anything recently, but like I'm not feeling motivated. I'd be like, well, okay, when did you stop feeling motivated? And we're going to go back to the past to try and unpack some things
Right.
to get you moving forward because the way you're looking at that event is what's actually hurting you now, right? So,
Right.
but we don't necessarily need massive action all the time. It could be, well, I could find some answers just by reflection.
Right.
So that could be part of the preparation to me taking more action in the future.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but once again, that's uncomfortable. If something's really been debilitating for me, right? If I feel really stuck, that might actually be the easiest move, is to look back in the past at something that's already happened, to try and extract some things from that and try to get that energy moving. And so we're going to question it. We're going to try and shift our perspective about it. And we're going to try and we can gain confidence from that. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we're letting go of some painful thing we're telling ourselves, which is going to
Yeah.
shift our energy. And then as I shift my mind about that situation, I'm going to see new opportunities. So there's a million ways to do this, but it can be a mental process where, but like most people, like I said, I've trained myself to sit still for hours on end
Yeah.
and just be with myself. And once again, I don't ask people to do that. Like that's how I can help people a lot faster, because it's basically I take them into a meditation process where we rewire these things without them having to go meditate, right? So however you want to do it is the name of the game is, am I learning from my experiences, or did I get stuck and I'm just keep telling myself a negative story over and over again, which is going
Right.
to kill my confidence and it's going to kill so much of my life
Right.
because I'm not moving forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can either do it through real world experience, or you already probably have tons of experiences that we can pull from and we can rework before you even take an action. So both of those will build confidence in reality, because we're making corrective actions even in your path. We're shifting how you relate to it. So now I'm showing up differently because I believe different things about my path, which is making me more present.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Nope. That's good. It's good.
So, the moral here is, it's whatever dose you want, right? But the main theme is, well, I can take I can take new actions that are uncomfortable, or I can take a look at old things I've done that are uncomfortable.
Comfortable.
And
Yeah.
and both of those things are gonna, if I rework the past, like that's gonna help me grow too. Okay.
Yeah.
So those are really our 2 paths, but at the end of the day, it's shifting our relationship with emotions, because that's all this is. If I've left something in a negative place, it's gonna stay there until I go back and I shift my mind about it. And so all we're trying to do is neutralize the energy behind those situations so that we can free you up and get you more present. And when you're more present, you can be more in tune with yourself, and then you're gonna have a pretty good idea of what actions you need to take, because you'll hear the intuition of what your next steps are a little bit better. You'll just be like, oh, like,
Right.
yeah, I'm really interested in this, and this excites me, and excitement is a good driver for us, right? That's kind of a
Right.
clue that we're on the right track. Is this aligns with my values, or this is something that's really fascinating to me, and we need things like that to drive a lot of action. We need
Right.
something exciting, because if you love what you're doing, it's not really work, right? And you're
Right.
also willing to work through the problems as they come up if it's something that's meaningful to you.
Right. Right. Yeah. Cool. So I mentioned a couple minutes ago, but you're working on a program having to do with confidence. I think it might be a good opportunity to share a little bit about that in case anybody's interested in working with you on that level.
Yeah, so I'm launching a new group program in March. It starts March 4th, and I'm calling it the Lightning Lab. So everything I do with my branding always has something to do with the lightning bolt.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so the reason behind that is, our nervous system is electrical, and I think if you align the pieces, you can get things moving pretty efficiently. And so that's basically what high performance is lining up all the parts to work together. And so that is kind of that clean energy like a lightning bolt. It's always kind of fascinated me. But so in this program, what we're doing is, so every 3 months there will be a new topic or theme. To start off with, I'm doing it on the authentic confidence blueprint. Here we're going to be trying to instill some basic principles about confidence, and how to build it over time. And so how to use your challenges as building blocks, as raw materials to continue to get stronger from. And authentic is simply this idea of, it's a mature confidence, meaning I have a lot of experience behind it. I've worked through the challenges, and I've brought the negative experiences to a better place, so they're neutral or positive experiences. So a
Yeah.
negative experience, if I leave it there, that's going to hurt confidence. Okay, that's we call that would be a failure. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to use everything as a learning experience, whether it's good or bad. We can go back to those experiences and extract wisdom and try and figure out what could I have done differently or what can I do better in the future to improve my results. So we're just going to be kind of working on these ideas of how to cement things in, of getting you lined up with what's true for you, your value system, what interests you the most, what gets you the most excited, and then actions we can take to continue to use that as a source of development to
Yeah.
build a stronger confidence. And so what's cool about this work is there's no area of your life it doesn't touch. We could be working on athletics or business, but it's also going to improve relationships and character development, and it's kind of everything rolled into one. That's why I'm so obsessed with it. But so the structure of the program, I'll be doing two teaching sessions a month, and so those will be topics related to confidence and how to build it. And then also I'll do one breakthrough session a month, and so that's going to be a kind of your classic Q&A session where we really work on application of the principles. So through the teaching sessions, the Q&A sessions, we'll bring real life scenarios to the table, and I'll coach you guys through that. And then
Yeah.
also along with that, there will be weekly reflection exercises to try and wrap your mind around what some good next steps will be for you, and maybe things that are affecting you from your past that are like creating stagnant energy and this inability to
Yeah.
move forward. Yeah. And then lastly, there will be a community function where we'll be able to chat with each other and share insights and share wins and all those good things. So this is starting March 4th, and this will go for 3 months. And then after 3 months, I'll come up with a new topic that'll continue to build. So super
Yeah.
excited about it.
Yeah, awesome. It should be really good. I'll be
Mhm.
excited to hear about what people get out of it, right? Or the breakthroughs that they have. Yeah, and I'm hoping, as we continue to have the podcast content, I'd love to be able to hear from people that are listening and what the questions are that they have and things like that, and how they're connecting into the work.
And that's saying is with this work, there's so many layers and levels to it, and I'm just looking to try and ground it the best I can for people because it is super transformational if you can really grasp these things. Because there's nothing you can't conquer with this work. It's just only a matter of time. So any like feedback that people have, extremely welcome. I would love to share things that speak to people the most. So anywhere we can get that feedback, that'd be great.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, yeah, so thank you guys for joining us. So the message of the day is basically growth comes with discomfort, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. And we're really just trying to build that positive association with taking new actions, thinking differently, questioning our past, things we're telling ourselves that are hurting our confidence or forming low self-worth or limiting beliefs. And so all these things, they're moldable, they're changeable. We have to question them, and we have to move through the discomfort to get to the other side of them. And on the other side of them is always a gift. So that's what's really special about this work. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we look forward to next time.
Yeah, if you're looking to connect with us, you can find the podcast, both Brandon and I, on Instagram. We have a YouTube channel, so you might be watching this on YouTube right now, but if you're listening to it, we also have a YouTube channel. And of course, you can connect via email or anything like that as well. Brandon, for this, would you want him to reach out to your personal email or the podcast email?
Yeah, we do Brandon at brandonthilk.com. You can visit brandonthilk.com. It's Thielk. So that's where, there's my coaching up there. And that's also where you can take a deeper look at the lightning lab or schedule a discovery call if you'd like to have a conversation about coaching.
Yeah. And I'll make sure all those links are in the show notes or the description as well.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
All right. Sounds good. Talk to you later, Brandon.
Bye.